the Interesting Conversations with Interesting People podcast series with author Nigel Beckles.
Welcome to the podcast.
Please like the podcast and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. The very best way to promote your podcasts. Podpage makes it easy to create a podcast website with just a few clicks. Every page is optimized to be found on Google and it stays up to date forever. For more information, visit podpage.com. The future of podcast promotion.
Have you experienced several failed relationships or been through a divorce? How can you avoid making the same mistakes again? How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes is out now.
Hi, my name is Nigel Beckles. My book is packed with practical and common sense strategies that you can use to make better relationship choices.
Now you can discover the dangerous myths about love. If your relationship expectations are realistic, why you could be falling in love for all the wrong reasons.
How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes. It's a book that could change your life.
Available from amazon.co.uk. Kindle version also available.
Author Queen P. When the mood is right, a poetry journey, mood swings, and when the mood is right, a rebirth. Books available on Amazon and all good bookstores.
Hi, I'm Queen P. Please join me by tuning into my poetry podcast, The Royal Affair, on Spotify, Apple, and all other similar platforms. You can also listen to the podcast on the Helium Radio Network on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You have entered into the Royal Affair.
Get ready for takeoff.
Welcome back to my Interesting Conversations with Interesting People podcast series. My very special guest for this episode is a founding member of the legendary reggae group Black Slate. Over the years, he has produced several big lovers rock hits and has a long list of achievements in the music and entertainment industry. Considered by many people to have been a major influence by creating some of the best reggae music in the UK, Mr. Anthony Brightly. Hi Anthony, welcome to my podcast series.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
Nice to have you here. So you are from the UK. Where were you born in the UK?
So I was born in Hackney, Mother's Hospital, right there in the heart of Clapton Pond. Went to school in the same area and lived most of my early life in Hackney. Did business in Hackney, went off, moved out, but came back to do business in Hackney. So most of my business that I've run in London has been in between Hackney and Tottenham.
So where do you live at the moment?
So I now live in Antigua. Antigua's where I call home.
Let's talk about your music career. When did you first become interested in music?
That's a really good, interesting question to ask me. I think I was just born into it. You know, my dad had a nightclub in our house, in our basement. So music, I remembered having records around me, working out how to use a record player and was playing records from I had sense. So I was just born into it. And from there, I just progressed into understanding the music more by listening. And because my dad had a nightclub, well, we never had no babysitter. So I would have to go to the club and I would watch artists perform and things like that. So I was always around sound systems, live artists. That was my life.
So you're a member of the reggae band Black Slate. How did you become involved with Black Slate and where did the name come from?
Okay, so Black Slate really started in 1972, where I met Chris Hansen, the lead guitarist, and Desmond Mahoney. We are the three original members of Black Slate, and we've had variations throughout the years till now. But how we started in a talent competition at a club called Phoebe's. There was a local club by, again, in Stoke Newington, Hackney. And that was the heart of the live entertainment. Most bands that came to London would definitely perform at the Phoebe's Club. And they were doing a talent competition and all of the young local artists just say, yeah, we can get a recording contract, because them days thinking about recording was so far-fetched. It was just something that you didn't think could happen. And even though my dad did a few recordings, because I didn't like what he did, I just thought that recording was just one of those things that damaged you more than progressed you. So with that, we went for the competition, and then I ended up becoming one of the backing bands for the talent competition. So when we first started, we were called the Young Ones from Zion, and we became the backing band for the Phoebe's talent competition. And we did that for about 2.5 years non-stop. which made us become like a little jukebox. So we knew every single song that was to do with reggae. And with that, we started to get work to back artists because artists would come over from Jamaica. So we became the backing band. And with being the backing band with such knowledge of reggae music and being able to play it properly, you found that when artists was coming from Jamaica, they would come to Phoebe's or people would say the best band to use is Black Slate. And with that, we became the number one backing band in London. We backed Leroy Smart, Johnny Clark, Ken Booth, Peptones, Delroy Wilson, Dennis Brown, and the list just goes on and on. Owen Gray, Dennis Al Capone. We became that band. And with that experience, we did it for a good 4 years non-stop, like every single artist that came into London. My whole secondary school weekends was all up and down the country, performing Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Nottingham, whichever it was. We knew every town centre up there, up north, on the west. You know, that's where a lot of black people reside. So where the music was where we were performing. And then with that now, we decided that obviously as we was getting older, we were no longer young boys. And I was actually youngest in the band. So I joined Black Slate when I was 12 years old as the young one from Zion. So obviously as I got older and they got older, we decided to change the name. And because we always wanted to have a message, them days, you wasn't afraid to say you was black. So black obviously was to let people know who we are, what we're like, and what to expect. And then word slate came from knowing that our parents or grandparents used to use slates in the Caribbean as their paper. So we said, right, because we're carrying a message, we're using the slate to carry the word. And that's what Black Slate's for. So a black group.
Back in 1976, Black Slate had their first hit in the reggae charts with their track Sticksman. Who or what was the inspiration for the lyrics for that song?
Okay, so the Sticksman record it's two prongs to it. So I took over my dad's sound from the age of 14. And, you know, as any sound man knows, the worst thing can happen to you is being signed off by another sound. And I played a sound called Fat Man, which was in one of my dad's Club Norwich in Tottenham. And I played one record and Fat Man signed me off. And I said, I'm coming back for revenge. So I went out and I recorded 3 songs. Piano Twist, which was a version to Here I Come, which was a big Fat Man tune. Susie Wong, which was a Jacob Miller tune, and I wanted my own version of it. And I made an instrumental with a melodica, because, you know, Gustus Pablo them times was big. So I did an instrumental with a raw bass line, which is what you know as Sticksman. So I intentionally made a bass line that would rumble the place. Oh, do, 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 doom, doom. Oh, do, 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 doom. You know what I mean? So I created that bass line because I wanted to make my sound heavy. My sound, Sir George, was building up a momentum. But most of my crowd was young Sticksmen. And, you know, they had a code on the street. You know what I mean? They don't rob from black people. They just rob from people because they can't get no jobs. And they justified what they were doing. And on my way to rehearsal, I saw a young man robbed a black lady. And then I went right back to the studio because I was only using a 4-track studio. I had to wipe off the melodic version and then I wrote that song literally the next day. And I was just really upset. You know, Sticks Man, why you do that? Rubber Man, why you do it? Say it was your mother. Say it was your father. You wouldn't like that. And that was just my way to talk to the Sticks Man them who was following my sound. Not for no other reason apart from this is the only way I can talk to you, by putting it in a record. That became a way of just showing my anger, really. And the Tuesday night when I went to Phoebe's to play, I said to my brother, I just realized what I've done. I'm going to play a record that can cause a fight in here. What are we going to do? And my brother said, you believe in the record? And I said, yeah. He said, well, play it, innit? Fight, we have to fight, then we'll fight. And when I played the record, all the Sticksman, because the club was just full of Sticksman. And when the record was played, the man them just stand up and put the man in and say, yeah, man, are we that? Not realizing it was the first record that ever represented anyone in the UK. So even though the words was what it was, it was a local record made by a local person, played on a local sound, and literally, we went to Plastic Gold, play with Jayu. People just follow where we played just to hear us play that record because I was the only one with it. Never sold no dubs to nobody or anything like that because it was like them days, only one sound in the world can play this tune, and that was me. But the tune become so popular that I had no choice but to release it. My dad came to me and he said, "Me here, see you have a record. Everybody wants." I said, "Yeah, but it's the sound." And he said, "Well, who the sound belong to?" Because my dad's name is George Brightly. And when he said that to me, and I looked at him and I said, "It's your sound." He said, "Then give me the tune." And with that, he told me right up the label. I did everything he said to do. And it became the biggest tune. The Guardian newspaper says it's the #1 song of all time of British roots rock reggae.
But it's interesting because you are not only a musician, you also had a sound system. So effectively you could make your own dub plates as opposed to going to someone and asking them to make them for you.
Exactly. Well, that's what happened in them early days because I never had them kind of money to even ask a man. I went to Keith Hudson and I said to him, "Boy, I'm playing Fat Man's sound and them keep on playing. You listen to the sound you're going to play." I said, "Can I get your dubs?" And he said, "For what?" I said, "For free." And he said, "Little man like you really brave to come to me and ask me to give you my master tape." And he says, "But because you are like that," he gave me his master tape and I went and cut them. So big up to Keith.
You mentioned backing Dennis Brown in concert earlier. So when was that concert in the UK? And how did you become involved with that concert and with Dennis Brown?
Well, we were as I said, the #1 backing band, and Admiral Ken, who used to own Bouncing Ball Club in Peckham, he was a promoter. He came from Hackney, actually, and he was doing a show in a place called the King's Hall, and he asked us to back Dennis Brown because he had him. Dennis came to Phoebe's. We rehearsed with him. Talented young man. And he just sat down with me because I needed extra help because I was the youngest one. And he just says, "Come keyboards, let me help you." And he just helped me go through all the songs. And then we did the show the Saturday night. Dennis Brown was just Dennis Brown at the time. He wasn't, well, I say just Dennis Brown. He had already had hit songs. He was already a star. But coming to England, he was even aware of who he was. He just wasn't aware of the hit songs that he had already had.
In 1980, Black Slate had a hit with the song Amigo, and it reached the top position of #9 in the UK singles chart. How did it feel to have a reggae hit in the UK?
It was amazing. It was, what I'm saying, surreal. Something was happening, and it happened so fast that it was actually out of our control. It was like a runaway train happening. I was a painter decorator and I was working, painting. And, as a musician, you can hear your music from a distance. And them days, everyone who's working has got a transistor radio playing, innit? In the background, I heard the record. I don't like my record. Anyway, I carried on playing. And I said, "No, man, that's my..." Anyway, I had to run down the corridor because we was painting a block of flats in the summer. And I ran down the corridor and saw the radio. And I looked at the radio like, this is my record. And it's not that it was the first time I heard my record on the radio. Obviously, with Sticksman, we were on Radio London with Steve Bernard and things like that. So it's not that you never heard your record on the radio, but this was Capital Radio, national radio station. And, no cell phones, no mobile phones at the time. So I ran to the phone box and called Chris, who was also at work. I said, "Chris, I heard them play Amigo." And he said, "Somebody tell me," said they heard it in the morning. And by the time the evening came, we all managed to talk to each other, and then everyone heard it at different times throughout the day. And literally overnight, it came in at number 82, jumped to 50, from 50 to 35, from 35 to number 10. And the reason why it didn't go any further is because they did not realize what the song was about. So obviously, for the powers that be, it was just a gimmick song. Amigo, and we dressed up like, we were a gimmick. We was not telling people, "Janago, deceive you." They never realized that people was chanting the words of Jah Rastafari and the greatness and the goodness of the Lord. And when whoever found out, because them days, the BBC was not allowed to do anything like that. And so they had to recruit, and that's why it didn't go no further. but it stayed in the charts for 30 odd weeks. Just, you know what I mean? They had to keep on playing it. We couldn't go up the charts because they took it out of the chart return shops. That's why it sold and sold. But, you know, it did well in Europe. Holland, top 3, Belgium, number 1, France, top 5, Italy, top 10, New Zealand, number 1, top 20 in Australia, top something in America. So we had a worldwide hit. I won't say it changed our life, but it enhanced our life in a sort of way that we definitely wasn't prepared. Because with that touring, I had to give up my job. And then, you know, a pressure arose of, where's the next one? And then you realize that it's not your sound that was a hit. The people who decided to play the record, they play any record, any reggae record on the radio, it's going to go to the top 5, standard, because reggae music does that. But they couldn't afford to have a reggae band out of it charting on Babylon and all the rest of it to become a multi-top 10 band. So when the next record came out, they chose not to promote it. But in other countries, they did. So our fame built in the rest of the world, apart from London or apart from England.
So out of the tracks that Black Slate had released, according to my research, you've done around 12 albums and around 30 singles. Would it be fair to say they are mostly reggae roots or dub tracks?
Yeah, it's roots rock reggae. That music that we do is rock reggae stroke covers rock.
So how did you become involved with producing Lovers Rock? Because that's a departure. It's reggae, but it's a different genre of reggae.
Okay, so that came with maturity. Different individuals in Black Slate playing as session musicians. Now, as the sound system, which is where this whole Lovers Rock really exploded, one of the things I had to do in the group, any record that I was involved in order for me to be able to play it on the sound, the members of the sound had to like it, or else I couldn't play it. So I made records so I could play it on my sound. So all the records that I made, I must have been able to play it on the sound, or I couldn't play it. Because the sound was becoming more popular, we were creating the trend of the music. Now, with that, I traveled to Jamaica and had a very bad experience where I took the Black Slate album and, Jamaica is where it's the heart of reggae music. So I went there, and don't forget, I've played with almost every single reggae artist. So I feel I qualify. Went to Jamaica, went to King Tubby's studio, and I said, I want to buy some dub plates, but I want you to listen to my music. And King Tubby said to me, Englishman, don't even bother waste my time. And I looked at him and I said, you're serious? And this is a big man and I'm just a youth. And I'm in Waterhouse, the place just cold in the heat, but it cold. You know what I mean? Nobody a smile, everybody really dread, you know what I mean? And I said to him, you can't talk to me like that. You know how much people me back? Him said, I don't care how much people you back. You're an Englishman and can't play reggae. So I said, watch me. He said, me not, no more Jamaican music. And he said, you think me care? And I left from there and I went to Channel 1 because I knew there was a difference in sound and I was a fan of Channel 1 music as well. So I went there and with not a lot of money, but I booked a session. And the man them start laugh after me. He said, look, this little youth man, him book an hour and a half. What do you think you can do in an hour and a half? And I said to him, that's all the money I have, but I actually want to do 4 songs. And I said, and them really mock me, laugh after me. And my brother was with me, as always, he's always with me. And he said, Anthony, do your thing. So them say, all right, who you want to play music? I said, I'm going to play the keys. I want a drummer. I got Santa. And I said, but I'm going to play the drums and tell you how I want you to play the. And I got a guy called Flabber to play bass. And I said to him, I'm going to play the bass and the keys to let you know how I want the bass. And I'm saying anyone else? I said, no, I just want drum and bass. Went on the drums, played the drums. And everybody just turned around and said, what? This man can play drums. So Santa played bass line and I made 4 tunes within, 45 minutes. So same time now, Sugar Minot, Tony Tough, and a guy called Lloyd Evans turn around and say, you man, me like that rhythm, What, me can sing pon it? I said, I don't have no studio time. If you can get studio time, you can sing pon it. And same time, they just sang on the 4 track. And that's how I became friends with Sugar Minot. So that was the reason when I came back now. So 2 things happened to my sound system. They stole the record box. And I had that experience in Jamaica. So I came back and I said, right, I'm not playing no more Jamaican music. I'm only playing British music are anything that is romantically sounding for me. So half of the roots or all the dancehall what was coming out of Jamaica at that time, I wouldn't play. I started a residency in a club called Cubiz. It became the biggest thing for 1979, 1980, 1981. And that's what the Lovers Rock craze came from. Because people said, I'm not going to Sir George because all them man do just play English music and soul music. But it became the fashion. You know what I mean? Many DJs came, and obviously I'm king of my castle. So I signed off many DJs. You know, Rodigan got his first sign off in 79 in the same club, Cubiz. And I said to him, that kind of music you're playing, we don't want it in here. And so on. You know what I mean? Same Fat Man came and played, and I signed him off. And that was the power of Lovers Rock music. So when you say, where did Lovers Rock come from? If you listen to all the Black Slate songs, you will hear the roots and you will hear the Lovers.
You've used the phrase signed off a couple of times in terms of playing against another sound system. What does that actually mean?
Right. When you sign off a song is when a sound comes into your domain, or if you're playing in a neutral place and they're not up to speed to your standard and you've got the majority of the crowd. And, you know, nothing's worse than, you know, them days you're playing one for one. And if you play a great record and then the other one plays a rubbish record, the crowd just stands up and it messes up your night. So we were quite forceful in our behavior. So we would just say, sign off, boy, pack up your song and go home. Wait until we did the night done and listen to our song man play. That's what we did.
So that's the equivalent of a Jamaican sound system clash.
That's a sound clash, yeah. But you wouldn't have come in for a sound clash. You would have come in to join in order to make a great night. Them days, you play one for one all night. Tune for tune for tune. You know what I mean? So it's all about keeping that crowd and the crowd leaving and say that was a great night. And that's what it was about.
Yeah, so we were talking about Lovers Rock earlier in terms of your kind of production sound transitioning from like roots, reggae, dub style to Lovers Rock. So why did you decide to create the Sir George record label?
Okay, so what happened was success does a lot of things. And when we had the success of Black Slate, you know, in the early days, you didn't even understand who was a producer from who was a director. Who, you know what I mean? You just got together and made music. The record label said, who's the producers of the band? And I said, everybody is. And they said, no, everybody can't be a producer. You must have a main person. So as a result, Elroy and Keith, Elroy was the bass player and a singer, and Keith was the lead vocalist. So they decided that they were going to produce the next album. But as a young man, there was too much in me to do. So with the success of my sound and the success of Black Slate, I said, well, all right, then I will do Black Slate and I will do Sir George. So as a result, I started off SG001, Sandra Reid, Ooh Boy, number one. And the list just goes on. And that's really what it was. It was just me just producing at a rate that suited my need, because I couldn't, you know what I mean? I just had, you know what I mean? I'm a youth. I've just got all this energy and I've got all these people who can sing around me. Everybody was coming to me and saying, can you make a record? And I say, can you sing? You know what I mean? Like Sandra Reid originally used to be the lead vocalist for Black Slate, because she came to the talent competition in 73 and won. So she was our lead vocalist right up as she went to college. And she lived up the road in Hackney. So when I decided that I was going to launch my label, I launched my label with Sandra Reid, Stephen Townsend, and a few other people. And I just started to release records. So that's the Sir George label.
Well, I have to say that Sandra Reid, Ooh Boy, 1983. Still one of my favourite Lovers Rock tracks. I still play it on my reggae show. And I have to say, I've always been a big fan of Pure Silk and the Lovers Rock. But I also noticed that there are covers of soul tracks. But what I wanted to ask you was, who decides what type of soul track will make a good Lovers Rock track?
Okay, so Pure Silk. Silk was just that, you know, what silk is in clothes. And because of how Sir George was, we were like a real fashion. And we would just wear silk suits, silk. People would come to see, what are these guys wearing today? You know what I mean? We perm my hair, you know, wear fur coats. We just was, and we were dancers. So we love to dance and we love our reggae. And for me, there was some soul track that I couldn't play in the dance as a soul track, but I could imagine it in reggae. So all of those Pure Silk soul tracks that you hear, They're all soul tracks that I stood up in a dance or played it on my sound and said, boy, I would prefer to hear this. And that's what happened.
So One Girl Too Late, Pure Silk, featuring Winsome. Would that be a good example?
That's a perfect example. I knew that track from in the early days and always loved the track. And what happened was I imagined singers singing a song. So I will hear a song and I can, yeah. But Winston was on the fashion label. Because I used to go to sell records to Dub Vendor, I went down there and said, you know what? I've got a record for your girl to sing. And he said, what's that? I said, it's called One Girl Too Late by Brendan the Tribulation. And he says, I don't know about that. And all the guys behind the counter, Fierce and all of them, just started to laugh. And he said, but you got girl artists. I said, yeah, but this one is for that voice. And he said, you know what? We're not doing a lot of productions with Winsome at the moment, so you can borrow her and see what you do. But really, they were really taking the mick.
So what made you decide that Winsome would be a good artist to cover that particular soul track?
Okay, so what's been happening, because I buy records anyway for my sound, so I've always bought records and I've admired her voice. But at the same time, I've done quite a few different things around just throughout just my whole music career. So I've always been into filming. So I did TV programs and things like that. And one of the TV programs I was doing at the time was a chart show. And you had to perform live. And Winsome did. And I heard her natural voice and how effortless she sang. And knowing that song, I said, you know what? That will suit her voice. And it was really also at the beginning of me coming back because I had a break. So every time I would reset up my recording studio, it would start a new era. So I had different sounds that would represent different times in my life with my own recording studio. So initially, I was using the Mark Darains and the Easy Street studios, and then I went on to using Flame Studio Manor House. And one of the things that happened in the early days is that it cost so much money. You never, ever really made enough money to pay for being in the business. So after losing all my money, I went and then created my own recording studio. So I had one at my house, and then as I progressed with my own studio, my sound would change. So Winston was the start of another era of my producing musical career. Because in the early days, I would just put out a record and I'll just put the name of the artist. But what happened is that with success, people would move on. My production was always the same, but I would have to use, put in a new artist, new name, and it was a whole new thing going on. I bought an album from Quincy Jones, and the album just said Quincy Jones. But he, as you know, he doesn't sing. All he is a producer. And he had all these artists on it. And I said, that is the lick. So I decided I'm going to just use my name, Pure Silk. And I said, I won't be as bad as Quincy Jones. I'll feature you. And that was because I went through a series of losing a lot of money with artists doing what they wanted. So I said, right, One Destiny, you're going to do what I want. You're going to sing, Do You Ever Think About Me? And you're going to do it my way. My name, so if it doesn't work, you won't lose no fame. And if it does work, you can do another one. And that was it. Do You Ever Think About Me? Number one. And that's where the Pure Silk really just kick off as Pure Silk, the band, Pure Silk, the outfit. And then that way I just became a music house of just recording artists doing songs that I want. And, I would hear a voice and say, yeah, you can sing Your Love, Wendy Walker. You can sing this, Spice of Life, Trevor Hartley. You can sing, Black Stones. You can sing Blues Away. You can sing that. And that's how I really just records that I like and want to hear them in reggae. And so that I can play them on my sound. So that's really how the choosing of the records and the voices is really just a preference to myself.
Well, another one of my favorites is Sandra Edwards and her reggae-fied version, Endlessly.
I remember recording that track. It's unique in a way, and Sandra Edwards has got such a beautiful voice, and she had to tame herself. And so she was like, higher, tame herself. And then when it got to the end, she couldn't hold back, and it was like, endlessly.
Yeah.
And what I used to use was always the in-house. So you got Trevor Hartley in the background, endlessly. That deep voice. I didn't even know how unique my style was until after the effect. because I was just doing what I love. You know, Sir Lloyd, the producer, Sir Lloyd, the sound system, he came to me and he said, Anthony Brightly, I just love the way you do your music. Can you do a music for me? And I said, yeah, no problem. He says, I got a track. No, I got an artist. I said, let me hear her voice. And he said, this is her voice. And I said, all right, I think she can sing 'Cause You Love Me, Baby. And that's where I recorded 'Cause You Love Me, Baby for Paulette Tarja. And I remember another DJ calling me and says, are you involved in that Paulette Tarja thing? Because it just sounds like you. And I said, yeah, it's me. He just forgot to put my name on it.
I went to college with Sir Lloyd. I read somewhere you've produced over 500 records over the past 30 years. Is that true?
It's a lot of records. I think if I was to count all of them, it's that and some.
Well, you've had a long career in music. What are some of the obstacles you've faced?
The biggest obstacle I would say that I faced is myself being shy and not putting myself out there. So as a result, you know, I've got all these titles, all these things that I've done. And because I don't want to become like a show-off, basically, I then created an existence without existing. So people will say, yeah, I love that record. Yeah, Pure Silk. Who's Pure Silk? You know what I mean? And it's not until, you know what I mean, people dig deep and realize, oh, that's Andy Brightly. But Andy Brightly said, George, yeah, but he's Black Slate. And ain't that man who owned the nightclub? And it's like, so when you put it all together, I think I became my own obstacle. And the industry, we don't own it. You know what I mean? So it was always about creating your own space and your own industry. And that's why I've gone into making movies now, because it's the ultimate in the entertainment industry. So I've looked at it to say, look, it's better I become the industry than to be part of somebody else's industry that has a problem with me. And that's where I am now.
So what advice would you give to someone who wanted to get into the music business or wanted to produce music?
Do what you like. Do what you really like. Believe in yourself and really don't worry about someone else. If you're doing it because you love it, then it's fine. If you're doing it because you want to get on somebody else's stage, then you do what they want them to do and just understand you're just another servant, you're a worker, But if you're doing it for the love of the music, then try your best not to fall out of love with it.
So talking about how many records you've produced, have you got any new albums or new singles in the pipeline in the near future?
Right. Well, right now we're working on the 50-plus album, Black Slate 50-plus album, which now the lead singer for Black Slate is my eldest son, Gavin Creary. He sung on the last album, Peaceful Demonstration. And he asked me if I could redo some of our classics. So even though we do them on stage, he asked, can he actually re-record them? On this new album, we've re-recorded 3 tracks from, Amigo, Freedom Time, and Live a Life, along with all the other new tracks. And with that, we're doing the Life of Black Slate film as a movie because it's warranted. And now I know how to make them. It's a little bit easier. So I don't have to ask anyone to do it. So what we're doing now, we're preparing to go on tour. We got some shows in England, Australia, New Zealand, and then we'll be coming back to the Europe and back in the UK. And most of the time when we're in the UK, we actually tour the Sticksman movie and Black Slate together on the same show. So you get the background behind the Sticksman story, and then we do a live performance.
So is that going to happen this year?
Yeah, it's happening already. We've been doing it for the last 18 months. So what we do, normally I host them myself or find individuals to host the event for me. So it'll be like an evening with Nigel with Black Slate and the Sticksman movie in your area. Because obviously you have people in your area. And basically one of the things of doing all these interviews is about creating alliances with individuals who are interested in our music. Because that's the key. If someone's interested in what you're doing, then that love is enough to join forces and build. And that's where we are now.
So you're the creator of the D-Jam Festival. So what is that about and what are the objectives?
Okay, so initially when I did it, I started it in 2004. And it's a festival of DJs. One of the things that always happens or doesn't happen, people don't recognize the role of a DJ. So I created an awards and a festival that really highlighted and was all about the DJs. and I did it in Antigua. So that was before everyone was doing party holidays. You know what I mean? I did it for 10 years where you would have people leaving England, coming to Antigua, and a week of musical bliss in exotic locations. Then after that, I went on the road back with Black Slate, celebrated 40 years. Yeah, celebrated 40 years in the music industry. And me and Chris and Desmond did a show together. And we said, you know what, let's hit the road again. And then that's when we recorded the peaceful demonstration. And this is where we are. So you find that a lot of what I've done overlaps. So now I've brought back the DJam Festival, but I've brought it back as a movie. And it'll be a sequel. So we're doing it again this year. We're filming it again this year. But we're adding the live element. So now it's a festival, a live music festival and DJ in Antigua with international artists and local artists.
Well, it's good to know that Black Slate are still going strong. So how can your fans and the general public contact you?
All right. So we have a website, blackslatereggae.com, and we're on all the social medias. And really and truly, you know what I mean, we've re-released most of our tracks, but we will be releasing everything on digital platforms. So we're easy to find and we're active. So this new album is exciting. What we've decided to do, we've recorded versions of our tracks. So we release one type of version and then we create an album that has either the extended versions of the tracks, or so you can go to Spotify's of this world and things like that and hear the short version, or you can buy the album and get the long version. So we still do vinyl, we do CDs, we do everything, we do all formats. We have our own pressing plant, we have our own mastering, we have our own van, and we have our own studios. And now we've just gone into movies, so we're just building our film studio here in Antigua and in the UK.
Well, you certainly have a lot of plans for the future. Anthony in Antigua, thank you very much for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time out to listen to my story and our story. And thank you to all of your listeners and everyone who's listening right now. Big up every time. I thank you, because without you guys wanting to know what we're doing, listening, and even listening right now, it's a beautiful pleasure for me. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Please join me, author Nigel Beckles, for interesting conversations with interesting people, featuring interviews with award-winning authors, relationship and life coaches, therapists, and a wide variety of people with intriguing stories to share. Interesting conversations with interesting people.
Please follow author Nigel Beckles' podcasts on Amazon Audible, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms. Thanks.